From a police raid on their mansion resulting in Andrew and Tristan Tate being held in a Romanian jail cell for over 3 months, all the way to spending 30 days under house arrest with some of the most serious charges possible. It wouldn't be a stretch to say the Tate brothers have had a wild ride for the past 6 months, but with the recent developments in their case, it seems like this is just the beginning. Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today we'll be taking a look at the recent news and developments in the Tate brothers saga. Following their move from jail to house arrest on the 31st of March 2023, Andrew and Tristan would receive a warm welcome from their inner circle and hardcore fans. It was from then on that Andrew would begin to reinforce the idea that the Matrix had plans to kill him. In his mind, if they weren't able to silence him in jail, they would do so with a bullet. I prepare my body to absorb the brutal kinetics of piercing lead. As all silencing attempts fail and stage 3 approaches, I anticipate a bullet will be the chosen utensil of pacification. I can only pray and prepare. I will force myself to breathe the best I can, I promise. If they kill me, I love you all. A message that would really resonate in the hearts and minds of his most dedicated fans, with many believing that the Matrix was after Andrew for the message that he preached, and that the entire criminal investigation was simply a ploy to keep him down and silenced. A ploy that massively backfired, resulting in Andrew looking like the underdog going up against an all-powerful institution. And the fact that he was placed in a cell for 90 days without any charges added some credence to this idea. The Streisand effect seems to be in full swing. The Matrix was trying to silence the Tate brothers, which only made their side of the story more convincing, or that's at least how it seemed on the surface, as in the short months later that followed, their transition to house arrest would be flooded with new evidence. Heated interviews,
making the point that there is
she accused me of a crime.
Emotional or psychological manipulation.
I've asked you a question
and serious litigations that completely turned things upside down. On the 10th of May 2023, The Sun released an article detailing the real reasons the Tate brothers were released from jail and moved into house arrest. The 80-page court order that the article was based on outlined the true nature of the investigation. Prosecutors from Tate, Romania's organized crime busters, had attempted to argue the Tates were a danger to the alleged victims. Quote, prosecutors from Tate, Romania's organized crime busters, had attempted to argue the Tates were a danger to the alleged victims, but the judges at the Court of Appeal disagreed, and said the brothers on house arrest would ensure a fair investigation. In the judge's eyes, the investigation wouldn't be negatively impacted by the Tates being under house arrest, even stating, quote, the Tates were not a risk as they were highly educated, lacked a criminal record, and were socially integrated. This proved that the Tate brothers weren't released as a result of the prosecution's lacking evidence, but due to the judge wanting to make the investigation fair. Speaking of investigation and evidence, Tate stated that they, quote, have thousands of documents and pieces of evidence, even going further to say that the investigation into them will be complete by July, which could indicate that the Tate brothers would be charged within the month of June, possibly going into early July. Going from jail to house arrest was a win for the Tate brothers, but the investigation was nearing a conclusion and seemed to be backed by a mountain of evidence. By the 1st of June 2023, Andrew would go on an interview with the BBC. It was his first interview after being released. However, it wouldn't be a beneficial one, as the encounter would quickly become extremely combative within minutes.
Have you raped anybody?
Absolutely not.
Have you trafficked anybody?
Absolutely not.
The first section of the interview was mostly spent discussing things that Andrew had said in the past, and how they may relate to the current investigation. Do you catch that tantalizing scent? Well, that's a signature aroma of today's sponsor, Vance Global, your perfect destination for top-notch gummies. Vance Global had the generosity to share their Delta 8 and HHC gummies with me, and let me tell you, they've been an absolute game changer. Think of them as a cozy blanket for your movie nights, or a peaceful lullaby after a stressful day at work. Now, Vance Global doesn't believe in mass-produced joy. They've specifically crafted 2 variants of gummies, Delta 8 and HHC, each a masterpiece in its own right. And no, they're not just vegan and organic, but they're also lab tested too. And for all my Cloak and Dagger fans out there, you'd be glad to know that they ship discreetly across all 50 states. You get to enjoy your gummies without the world peeking in. Now, are you ready to invite these little delights into your life? Well, hop onto their website and grab a pack for yourself. Or even better, opt for their subscription service, with a special discount code just for my audience. Use code ANARCHIST to get a sweet 20% off your order, or go for gold with code ANARCHIST30 to snag a super 30% discount on subscriptions. With that being said, let's get back into the video. The reporter didn't appear to be concerned with Andrew's stay in prison, and mostly brought up out of context quotes from his past posts on YouTube, the courses on his old website, and various other sources, many of which that have been already taken down or deleted.
women who are going to court to accuse you of rape and human
Sophie hasn't gone to court. Sophie doesn't exist.
I'm describing women who have
The
spoken
video
to
she was referring to is from Andrew's webcam business course.
Charges. The first one you mentioned, the rape one's already been thrown out by a judge because there's no evidence of it.
Throughout the interview, Andrew claimed all quotes were either taken out of context or denied ever even saying anything like it. He even denies taking down his old website.
No website's been taken down. My website is the same. It's been the same for a very long time.
The comments on this website, on the original website, have been taken down, and I wonder
It is
why.
true that some of her references to a few podcasts were taken at face value, but the issues of his old website were concerning. His old courses that were meant to teach men how to start a webcam business that clearly took advantage of women. Andrew would go on to claim that no one was speaking out about the case, other than the imaginary individual that Legacy Media created, whilst denying his involvement with a webcam business. These claims become harder to believe when you take a look at the documents regarding Andrew's case. What followed was a transcript of Andrew's conversation with one of the victims. He explained his business model, referenced his courses, and stated that he wanted her to come and live with him in Romania. Andrew quoting, "You're not stupid, and you probably guess how I make so much money. I have to hide what I really do." The victim saying, "Webcam?" With Andrew replying, "For a long time, I did this with a team of girls who worked on video chats. The company was fake, but that's how I washed my dirty money. After that, men started to be jealous and asking, how can I start a webcam business? So I started charging men to teach them." Parts of the document even detail how Andrew allegedly used women to launder money and had the phrase "property of Tate" tattooed on their bodies. According to Andrew, all this information was fabricated by the Matrix to slander his name. The interview turned debate would eventually become so heated that Andrew's lawyer had to step in.
Agreed to do an interview where you are going to ask questions that are going to give us the opportunity to clarify some things. These are very loaded questions,
sorry,
and so far, I'm sorry, I have arranged this and I'm talking right now. So, these are very loaded questions, and this is not...
The rest of the interview was directed at the other aspects of Andrew's life, such as his impact on young men and claims of charity work, with Andrew stating that he gives $25 million to charity annually. Finally, the interview would close on an interaction that seemed almost comical.
Do you really believe you're the most influential man on the face of the planet?
I'm the most Googled person on the planet.
Do you believe you're the most influential man on the face of the planet?
I'm the most Googled man on the planet.
That statement would have been true back in December 2022, but current Google Trends tell a different story. Two versions of the interview would be uploaded to the internet, a shorter 12-minute version posted to the official BBC channel on YouTube, and the full 38-minute version posted to Andrew's Rumble page, the latter gaining over 9 million views compared to the 3 million views on BBC's version. 3 days later, Andrew would make a follow-up statement to address the Matrix, giving them his demands for any further interviews. Firstly, Andrew made the claim that Legacy Media failed the public by not asking interesting questions and instead focusing on what he said in the past.
I thought that even the BBC, in its absolute arrogance and hubris, would be smart enough to come to me after 6 months, being the first interview I gave to the Matrix, and be smart enough to ask questions people were genuinely interested in.
He went on to state that the BBC took clips from his older podcast and began creating a narrative that he was a human trafficker. Andrew also ignored the reference to his old webcam courses. To make sure that he wouldn't be questioned like that again, Andrew announced his new requirements for any future interviews with anyone that he thought was part of the Matrix. He wanted $50,000 donated to charity and a box of chocolates.
$50,000, so we'll feed over 60,000 children for wasting an hour of my time, plus a box of chocolates. That is my fee from this point forward.
This begged the question, who was Andrew referring to when he said news outlets outside the Matrix? Was he referring to outlets that saw him as innocent, or those that presented facts about the case? The next interview was on the 12th of June 2023, with someone who Andrew claimed was outside the Matrix, no other than Valuetainment. He had several interviews with Andrew before, and this one was no different. The main topic being how the Matrix was attacking Andrew, and stories from his time in jail.
And jail as a whole, I mean, there's so many stories I can tell. There's so many different ways I remember it. There were times I laughed. I will sit and say some of the best days of my life were in jail.
Get out of here.
Andrew would eventually talk about the criminal case, although in a limited fashion. He claimed the events that the BBC discussed happened 9 years ago, which is odd since his indictment is based on events that occurred in 2022. The video would become an instant fit with both Andrew Tate's fans and haters, garnering over 10 million views on YouTube. The narrative of the Matrix attack was pulling a public sentiment towards Andrew, and he intended to take full advantage of it. His first emergency meeting stream happened a few days later and had over 400,000 concurrent viewers. During the meeting, Andrew stated that there were parts of the case that he couldn't discuss, but he made several claims about what they were accused of. He claimed the case had nothing to do with the webcam business, but was all about stealing money from girls' TikTok accounts.
Hey Tristan, you used to run a webcam studio. I no longer run one, but yes, I used to. How is this linked into the case? That has nothing to do with the case. But the narrative is that I formed a criminal gang when my net worth was already over $100 million. We allegedly formed this gang to steal money from TikTok accounts. That is the narrative. That is what I have been arrested for. And this is the first time publicly I could finally clear that up.
The Tate brothers gave the impression that the entire case was built upon lies, and that it was highly unlikely that they'd be charged with anything, but this would be far from what happened. On the 21st of June 2023, the Tate brothers and their 2 associates would be formally charged with human trafficking in continuous form, the formation of criminal organization, and rape in continuous form. Dicot's latest press release added several damning details about the case. In addition to the original allegation, the Tate brothers were charged with, quote, illegal access to the computer system, alteration of the integrity of computer data, instigation and hitting or other violence, as well as, quote, the 7 victims identified during the criminal investigation were subjected to forced labor. Of the 7 victims who were sexually exploited by the organized crime group, 3 became civil parties in the criminal process. Dicot went on to state that they had confiscated 15 properties with the IFOV County, 15 luxury cars, shares within 4 commercial companies, and $3 million in cryptocurrency. The investigation was complete and they were going to trial, but in Dicot's own words, situation that cannot in any way defeat the principle of presumption of innocence. Just a day later, Andrew would address the situation by complaining about the bad press and claiming the media was corrupt.
For 1 year they've attacked me, and they will not stop. I've been offered to sell my soul. All I had to do was shut up. If I would have sold my soul to a large corporation, and then this attack happened, then this large corporation would speak to the media, and the media, they wouldn't be treating me as an enemy, they would treat me as an ally. All I had to do was sell my soul, and I refused.
Andrew made sure not to mention the case in any capacity. He was more concerned with swaying the public opinion. He wants the public to believe that the entire case was a conspiracy created by the Matrix. But looking back at Andrew's own statements about this webcam business, the reason he moved to Romania for the sack of corruption and courses that he sold, it doesn't seem like an attack. The evidence in the case describes Andrew's strategy of recruiting women, which is identical of which he taught in his own course. He would approach women with the intention of getting them to do sex work, making them fall in love with him, and then bring them back to Romania to work for him. This strategy bears a striking similarity to the one used by convicted Romanian trafficker Leo.
Am făcut un trafic de persoane cu fete. Ne-am dus în Italia. Am făcut prostituție cu ele.
Romanian authorities have had issues with crimes of trafficking for a long time, and organizations like the Council of Europe's Group of Experts on Action Against Trafficking in Human Beings, also known as GRETA, have gotten involved, instructing Romanian authorities to prioritize action against human trafficking. It's safe to say that Romanian authorities have a vested interest in seeing the case through. On the 29th of June, Andrew decided to go on another interview to further discuss his current predicament. He would also continue to frame the charges as a subjective Matrix attack and generally downplay the evidence brought forwards.
So I have a narrative which is countering their narratives that they control, and they feel like that I need to be punished for that. And they're massively influential and powerful, and now I find myself in the position I'm in with a Matrix attack.
Apparently he got too big and his message was too controversial, and the human trafficking charges were completely unexpected.
I knew that some kind of attack was coming. I didn't expect to get hit with this. Human trafficking is insane.
Considering what he said on a previous interview with James English, it doesn't seem at all unrelated.
75 women worked for me at the peak of it all. But that was a mistake, because when you have a bunch of girls working for you like that, the only way you can motivate them is with money. When I started, the girls worked for me because they loved me, right? That's the old school pimp game, isn't it? I love this man. We're on our way to the top together. But when you get too big, you can't have all these girls in love with you. I mean, you can only so like we're all human, right? So I cut down to like a special forces team of around 8 girls. And that's where I made my most money. When I had 4 girlfriends, my brother had 4 girlfriends, I was turning over 400 grand a month.
The story of the Tate brothers is a long and fascinating one packed with unanswered questions. Why did they take down their old website and courses? And was Andrew really predicting the Matrix next move? Or is it all just an attempt to cover his tracks? There are 2 main ways that people view the Tate brothers' current situation. One side believes it's entirely a product of the Matrix, and the other side assume that the crimes of his past are finally catching up to him. Andrew is yet to be proven guilty, and in the eyes of the law, he is still innocent. However, the coming months of court proceedings will certainly put that to the test. Many people believe Andrew to be the most hated person on the internet, but that's not true. Click the video on screen to find out who truly is the most hated person.